Your levels of confidence is essentially like a price tag that you stick on your forehead and walk around with. Because anytime that you meet a person, you tell them exactly how much to value you. So if you ever encounter a relationship where you're like, hey, this person doesn't actually value me enough, they don't treat me right, etc., it's your own fucking fault. And the reason for that is because of what I just said. Anytime, any action that you take can either increase the perceived value that you have between you and that other person, or it can decrease that fact, okay? And this means that the game is never lost, because at any point in time, you can still take new actions that signal new things and increase your value in the other person's eyes. Now, you may be thinking like, okay, Boyd's just talking about romantic relationships or just talking about friendships and network. I'm even talking about boxing sparring. Because when you meet the other person in the ring, you tell him with very small, subtle body language if you think that he's better than you or the other way around. And I've been sparring a lot, and I have had a lot of different sparring partners. And what I can tell you is that when someone does that to me, those are the easiest sparrings, right? Because when you know that you got the other guy in your hand, in the palm of your fist, and you know that he's slightly afraid of you, Mike Tyson said it as well, right? They look slightly down or whatever it may be. That is when the game becomes the easiest, because then your confidence doubles, triples instantly. Because if you know someone is just afraid of you, your confidence is just going to rise, and you're going to have that much more access to your potential. And the other way around, when the other person is intimidated, you get more confident and they get even less access to their potential. So they may be this good, but now they're this good just because of a mental thing that's going on. And that applies to any area in life, whether you're in a sales conversation, whether you're in a networking meeting, whether you're dating someone, whether you're sparring, whether you're in a street fight, whatever, okay? And so what you got to understand is that it's always 100% your fault if someone doesn't value you, if someone feels like you're below them, whatever. You actually told them that, okay? And you do that by very subtle sub-communication. And I'm not talking about the obvious ones, right? I'm not talking about, okay, if we're talking about a relational context here, I'm not talking about, okay, yeah, man, I do this and this is what I can do for you there. That's obviously hard qualification to another person, which you should never be engaging in whatsoever anyways. But what I'm talking about more is the very subtle, actions where you actually want to go up and go to the bathroom, but you hold it a little bit because you're like, oh, it's a little bit, let me just not do it right now. Or you have a strong opinion on something, but you just hold it back a little bit, right? Because you're like, oh, this person is going to have a different opinion about this. Those are the very subtle things. Or it's even in the handshake, right? If someone does this to you, wants to give you a box, and you go and you shake their hand, you came to that person more. You lowered your value ever so slightly. Now, I understand fully that this thing about the box in the hand, it's going to sound to most people like, dude, are you really thinking about it that deeply? I'm not. I'm just giving you a very trivial examples to show you that the smallest of actions, right? Even looking at someone too much, right? You have these dumbasses that say like, hey, if you want to really connect with someone, or like, if you want to really talk to someone and give them, establish value or something, that really look deep into their soul, into their eyes. Well, listen, you can do that, and that can certainly have an effect because you're connecting. But once again, that's a connecting behavior, right? So it's a coming towards type of action. And so that is not always what you need, right? Sometimes it's a lot more effective to kind of be scanning around, right? And you have the person standing right here, whether that's a networking meeting, whether that's, sales, whatever, right? And just kind of have your focus on other things, right? And then that person is bringing all this focus towards you, and you're just being a little bit more aloof. So it's not, black or white, like my fingernails. But either way, and that's just a blue spot, you guys. That's not no fingernail paint. But anyways, that's something important that you got to understand, okay? It's very subtle, and anything and everything you do makes it go either up or down, okay? So you tell people exactly what price tag to put on you. You tell people, or do you belong in the Louis Vuitton store, the Richard Mille store, or H&M, right? You tell people that. And once again, it's not verbally, well, it could be verbally, but it's mostly non-verbal communication, okay? And also, if I'm speaking about communication, everything is communication, okay? As I just said, even something very physical as the boxing ring is so largely communication, okay? It's really how you carry yourself and how you enter that ring, and you'll see that that has a massive impact on your opponent and on yourself as well. So where does this come from, okay? If you have that communication, you know, about the price that people have to put on you, then we can ask ourselves as well, where does that stem from? Okay, so if you have a habit of telling people a low price tag, subcommunicating that they shouldn't value you that much, right? Then, and by the way, just one more segue, even in a confrontational situation, like a street fight, right? Or something where a street fight is brewing, right? Where you have a confrontation with someone and then you tell that person exactly how dangerous you are, right? By your subcommunication. And that's why you often hear that, you know, people who are martial artists and know how to defend themselves, or people that, you know, have just been around the block in that sense physically, that they actually get into less altercation because, you know, people don't actually want to mess with them, and they show that, right? And so that is another thing, right? Like, I remember a vivid moment. This was just exactly what I'm just telling you right now, when me and a friend were out and about when we were like 14, 15, must have been something like that. And we were just at a bar in town, and we were just maybe like 16, yeah. And then we were walking out and we somehow got into a small altercation with two other guys, right? And these two other guys thought they were super gangster and looked the part, right? And so they were trying to intimidate us. And at one point, me and my friend, we just basically showed that we were completely ready and low-key excited about having a little scrap right there, right? And just by doing that, all of a sudden these two guys were like, oh no, you know? And then they said, hey, I remember vividly, these two guys all of a sudden said, one of them said, you know what I think we need to do? I think we all just need to have a cigarette and laugh it off, right? And then he offered us, you know, cigarettes. And then we literally just smashed that thing out of his hands. Now, why? I'm never the person, if someone wants to be nice and stuff, I'm never the person who's going to be a dick, right? But look, think about it. That person is just being nice because he felt threatened, right? So that to me is even worse. Because if you truly think about it, he's the type of guy, or those two guys, right? Them two guys are the type of guys that will totally fuck with you if you're a bit weaker, right? Those are the types of guys that are going to go for the gazelles, right, in the herd, for the wounded gazelle, right? For the guys that, you know, they think they can mess with without any repercussions. That is something that I just have an absolute disdain for, because right, they thought that we were like that. It turned out not to be, and then they were nice, right? I would have even respected it more if then they were just down to fucking go, right? Instead of then retrieving because they thought, oh, these guys are actually about it. These guys are more serious than that. And, you know, I've had many cases like that, because most people in general, they just put up a, you know, it's kind of like a peacock, right? They put up an act, but then if you actually, you know, kind of stab through that little layer of act, it all comes falling down like a house of cards. I remember another dude, I was literally on a push bike, right? Going home from school or something when I was, again, 15, around that age. And these two guys, again, so-called gangsters, were standing there, big ass dude in his jacket, smoking and everything on the street corner. And I was on the bike with some kid from the school who was just not about it at all, right? And this guy said to me, hey, homo, right? As I biked by. So, you know, that basically, hey, gay dude or something. I don't know if that translates over literally. And I literally stopped. Well, we were biking, and then my friend, you know, the kid who was with me in the class, he was like, no, let's not do this, let's not do this. And I stopped and I turned around, I put my bike down, and I walked right up to him. And I'm like, what the fuck you say to me? You know, just like that. And all of a sudden, this guy starts saying, oh yeah, man, I thought I knew you, right? We met somewhere 2 weeks ago or so. Comes up with this whole story about how he knows me, right? And that it was just like a joke. Because to be fair, it is, if you know someone and if just, hey, what up, you know, a gay ass motherfucker, like something like that, right? It translated over in English. So it would be normal, but I didn't know the guy, right? And I knew he was full of shit. But at that point, I was just like, fuck it. Right, it's fine, right? And I left. So that's just another example of that, right? This is not just something that is applicable in communication. It's literally across the board, okay? How you communicate and carry yourself tells people how to treat you, right? This guy is a pushover. This guy really values himself. This guy is whatever, right? And so that allows people to then not fuck with you because they know they can't, okay? But it has to come from you first. And so once again, kind of getting back to the point that I was getting into, right, just a couple minutes ago, is that where does this stem from initially? Initially, it stems from your own level of confidence and self-esteem, okay? Because if that is really high, if you feel like you're very valuable, this can also be context specific, right? If you just socially think you're the shit or business-wise think you're the shit, but just in a physical altercation, you'd shit yourself, then obviously that doesn't necessarily carry over there, right? So here you might be unconfident, here you might be confident. But what I would say is try to, get that confidence everywhere. But anyway, that's where it truly comes from, right? And so in that sense, if you can ask yourself, right, how do I actually feel about myself currently, right? And then analyze from there, why is that? Because this is the core of a lot of the things that are happening in your life. Because if you think about it, talking to people, etc., and meeting people is pretty much in every aspect of your life, as I just explained. And so if you can have an influence on how people perceive you by changing how you perceive yourself, that'll be massive, okay? So the way to do that is to start just there. Just asking yourself, hey, can I start perceiving myself differently? Why do I feel I'm this, right, or that? And then actually literally self-analyzing and changing yourself from there. So if you start doing that, then you want to just see the effects that has and how people start treating you differently. And then you're going to start seeing the impact that is on your life, because you got to understand that status is just the biggest part of the results that you're gonna get with people. Everything is status, okay? I hate it. Everybody hates it. Nobody likes that, okay? Everybody wants to just be all lovey-dovey Disney movie. And, it'd be great if that was working, if that was effective in life. But ultimately, we are survival-based beings, which means that we're walking around with a pound of flesh in our heads, right? Meaning our brain, that is designed to make us survive. And I say this in every video because I want to drum this into your fucking head, because so many people forget about this. It's designed to make you survive, okay? And in order to survive, it looks for things that have status and wants to associate with that. When I say things, I rather mean people, right? It looks for people that have status and wants to associate with that, right? Because that it makes it attractive to your brain. And why is it attractive to your brain? Because it increases your chances of survival. You might say, oh, it's because someone is sexy or because someone is famous and it's just cool, whatever. But subconsciously, it's just wired like that, okay? And so you don't actually have, here's the interesting part about this. You don't have to be famous, extremely rich, or any of that stuff in order to slap that big ass price tag on yourself, okay? Because you can actually just step into that type of confidence without having those things, right? You could even ask yourself, if I was the most high status, famous, rich person in the world, how would I act and behave and feel, right? Okay, it's a simple hypothetical scenario. Anybody can think of that, right? And then you can start stepping into that, okay? And it's probably not gonna, you're probably not gonna be able to keep that up for a long time, right? Because it's not your default, but you could step into it and train yourself to behave like that. And so my point is not, because I really hate this mentality that people have in this whole self-development kind of space. I really don't want you to say, okay, I'm just gonna feel like I'm on top of the world, right? And then behave like that to people. And I'm not talking about lying, I'm just talking about behaving like you're the shit, right? But then I'm not actually gonna create it in real life. No, that's not the motherfucking point that I'm trying to give in this video, right? The point that I'm trying to give in this video is that, okay, you can tap into that emotion, you can tap into that personality, But more importantly than affecting people in a different way is that you're then actually going to have that mentality that's going to allow you to actually create those external circumstances. Simple example. Let's say that you feel like Leonardo DiCaprio, you feel like you're that level of actor, right? You have all that winner effect going on in your mind because you visualize that and then you step into it and you act from there, okay? You method act, essentially, okay? Method acting is what actors do when they need to get into a role, right? And then they actually step into that personality and they are being that personality, that character from the movie. They're being it, okay? They're not doing it, they're not playing it, they're being it. For that moment, they're being it, for that direction. And method action is actually, method acting is actually a concept where, these actors, they'll stay in that role for months during the shoot. Like they'll actually live as that role completely. And I've heard that also has fucked some people up because, for example, the Joker, I believe, did this or something. I've never seen that movie, but apparently some crazy serial killer or something like that. And, he was just mentally not okay after the stretch of shooting because, he'd been method acting for too long. Meth acting, right? So anyways, that is something that you can actually apply yourself, right? So with that example, like Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And let's say that you want to be an actor. Now you enter that acting room. So you don't take this, this concept, you don't take it to say like, okay, I'm just going to act like Leonardo DiCaprio. So then I don't have to do all that shit and become Leonardo DiCaprio. No. That's not the fucking point. Okay. That's not the point, you lazy little shit. The point is now you're going to enter, right? Yes, you're going to be able to affect people and just have a great personality and just have your social life on point and this and that. But the bigger point is to actually use this for your success rather than just your enjoyment, right? Now, this and that. And so how do you use it for success? Well, now that you're going to go into an acting gig and, do a audition, you're going to enter that room as Leonardo DiCaprio, whatever suits your boat, right? People always say I look like Brad Pitt. I say it in every video. I just don't know why people are still not bought into it. But anyway, such a lame one. Anyways, that is, how you then actually apply it to your success. Because the trap, I'm just going to repeat it one more time. The trap that you guys fall into, or that people in general fall into, is, okay, when you learn this mindset stuff, and you can literally appear as a super different person. You can literally transform yourself mentally. But then, now they're just doing all these cool things, but they're not actually creating the success, okay? It's like golden handcuffs at that point, okay? Because you do want to create the success, obviously, right? You want to really follow your purpose, create your purpose, all that. So use it for that. That's just a very important note, okay? Don't just be like, oh yeah, now I'm extremely confident and charismatic, and now I'm just going to pick up chicks and go out every night. No, that's not what I'm trying to say, okay? So, you use it for that. But that's that method acting method, right? And so what you'll also find is that on the other hand of that though, the people who only focus on getting more success, but not actually also developing their personality, etc., and they think like, oh, once I make this much money, or once I do this much, etc., then I'm gonna have this confidence because then I'll allow myself. That's just you thinking that you're gonna allow yourself to have those emotions at that point. But what you're doing is you're training yourself to have it behind a goalpost. And once you achieve that, then there's going to be another goalpost and another one, right? And what you got to understand is that emotions are emotions, right? And you can summon them at any point, because you can just ask yourself now, once again, getting into the hypothetical scenario, so many people are just not able to even think of a simple hypothetical scenario. So we're going to train it right here. Thinking of a hypothetical scenario, right? What's the thing that you think you would need right now that will give you the most confidence? Okay, think of that. Okay, how would you feel if you had it right now? And actually really visualize and hypothetically create that scenario in your head that you would have that right now, right? You would do that right now, whatever, okay? How would you feel, right? And then lock in that feeling. And then you can just create and summon this feeling because it's a what if scenario, right? So you have the feeling right now, right? Okay, it might not be as strong as it would be if it was really happening. But if you would sit down for 5 minutes and just really get into a dream scenario, right? Because I'm telling you, if you actually are sleeping and you have a dream, at that point, that dream is reality for you. So you feel the exact same emotions as you would feel, right, if it was really happening, because your conscious mind is shut off, right? So there's nothing hindering, okay? And so that's also why kids, right, because they don't have that, conscious mind yet. Everything is open still, right? If they're very young, they can play this person, they are now a dragon, fucking Jurassic Park type shit, right? They can do that because they're not consciously limiting and hindering themselves, okay? And so, you know, you can actually get to those emotions without having the thing, okay? You just need to allow yourself to do it, because now you're an adult, right? And adults don't allow themselves to feel like that, unfortunately. A lot of adults don't allow themselves because they're like, oh, well, it's not really true, so I can't really feel. Well, look, if that actually helps you get there, then what the fuck are you even talking about, okay? Just tap into it and use it to get it. So that's the point, okay? Every time you meet someone, you tell them exactly how much to value you. You tell them, well, how much you value yourself. You tell them to mess with you or not, okay? You tell them you're a better boxer than me or not, right? And so it's your mental stance, right, that you have before you enter the ring, before you enter the conversation, whatever, that's really gonna dictate the biggest part of your results, right? So if you wanna shift that, then your results are really gonna shift, instead of just doing all these little tricks and this and that, because you're still gonna sub-communicate things, right? It's very extremely subtle, right? You probably won't even notice that you just told someone that you're worth two out of 10, okay? So take that home. Do these exercises and understand you can tap into any emotion right now if you just allow yourself to, and just step into it and act from there, okay? And be that and act from there. And then create that actual result that you really want in your real reality. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one.